Overall, what do you think about the defense without their starting defensive tackles today?
Well, it shows that the depth is there for supplementary views. I mean, they need to come in and actually give these guys a blow. But there's a clear drop off between Eric Armstead and Javon Hargraves inside, and Kalia Davis, Javon Kinlaw. I want to be fair. Okay, this is like their first time actually having extended reps, but they
Yeah.
had a rough go of it, and this is exactly what we wanted to see. Before I talked about this us being a really good litmus test for us to have a controlled exhibition to see what we have in our depth. And I feel like this was a great game for us to see that. If we want to get to the tail of the tape, in raw yards, they rushed for over 300 yards on us. Okay. In team yards, they rushed in running back yards. I think they rushed for about 264 yards, which is crazy. James Conner, and this is what's wild. It's not the fact that they just had a solid running day from us on us, but they basically did it in all facets, right? You could see if they understood, hey, I could take a grind out game where we're dealing with a team who can't really pass the ball, and they're resorting to 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and they're just bashing our backup guys in the middle. I can take that. But they hit us in different ways on the run game. They pounded us with James Conner. They also had heavy hitter run. They had home runs on us with James Conner and Amal DeMarcado. Kyler Murray had a solid day with being able to have 8 yards per carry. He ran when he needed to and when he wanted to. He had a long of 15. Michael Carter also had 3 carries for 27 yards, albeit nobody for the Cardinals had anything. The lowest yards per carry for the Arizona Cardinals was 3 yards a carry, and that was Rondo Moore, who only had 1 yard for 3 yards. Outside of that, the lowest average yards per carry for all ball carriers for the Arizona Cardinals was 5 yards. Okay. And that was 1 carry of 5 yards. If you had multiple carries, then you hop all the way from 5 to 9 yards. Okay. And the only person that had 6 yards was James Conner, who got 14 carries. We have to be able to get guys on the ground in the running game. All right. So look, we can talk about the defensive line, and we could talk about the guys who definitely they got washed out of run fits. Javon Kinlaw was getting moved off the line of scrimmage. He wasn't anchoring himself. Kalia Davis at times was chasing on the back end. And that was another big thing where sometimes where Arizona was running power on us, they were getting penetration and we were stout on the front end, but it was the backside, the cutbacks, being able to close down that back door where Kalia Davis was late to the party if they're going to the left side. Javon Kinlaw is getting doubled down and he can't close the back door for a cut side on the right side. So the running game, you could look at that and say, all right, defensive line didn't have a good day, but we didn't have our true defensive line. That's fair. One thing that you cannot talk about, you can't excuse his missed tackles. Fred Warner did not have a good day.
I agree.
He did not have a good day. Okay. Dre Greenlaw, he missed a couple of tackles and he was out of position a couple of times, just being overly aggressive. But Fred Warner missed multiple tackles. It particularly the tackle by Amari DeCardo, the run that of 49 yards by DeMarcado that went up the seam. That was Fred. He missed them completely. It's coming to the point where you can't, if Fred is being able to chase somebody down laterally, if he's being able to get somebody in pursuit, you can always count on Fred to bring the boom, deliver an actual blow. But it just comes to the point where Fred has to go north-south, okay? If he has to go downhill and actually make a real business decision in a collision with the ball carrier, he comes up short. And this is something that it's not necessarily to down Fred, to talk bad about him, but it is something that it's consistent. It is a trend. When they were losing games, this was something that was glaring from Fred. Even when we played the Eagles, there was a whole drive where they drove down 3 plays in a row and scored on us. Those were the 3 plays that Dre Greenlaw was out of the game. Fred missed 2 tackles and got scored on. So listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. We have an amazing defense, and this is a championship level team and defense. But today, if you have to look at this, if you take away the 2 picks from Mooney Ward today, our defense is in trouble. we had a bad day. The 2 picks elevated the overall defensive effort, and on top of the fact that Arizona doesn't have a passing game. But if you look at the way that Arizona is built, all right, they're trying to be physical. They've got a quarterback who can get the ball out, but he relies on his legs. They've got a stingy running game, all right, a tough running game, and they've got strong tight ends. They're almost like a bastardized version of Baltimore, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So really, our defense, they came through because you can never discount turnovers, picks, right? Picks and then pick sixes rather are something that completely turns games on their head. So yes, they performed. However, we're talking about it's chess, it ain't checkers. We're talking about trying to go get the big one. Okay. Today was not a championship effort. All right. And really, in some instances, you got to look at really how our offense performed today, because a lot of instances today they carried our defense.
Yeah, and I think that this is something that a lot of people have noticed with Fred, and Fred is a fantastic player, but his strength is really being able to stay clean. And when he's able to stay clean, he can make those plays. And I think what happens, or what you saw a lot of today, is maybe not having their 2 starting defensive tackles means that he's not as clean as he normally is. And so now he's got to be the one to make the plays. And I do think it was probably his worst game of the season. It wasn't. I'm not concerned. I think is the biggest thing. I'm not concerned because Armstead and Hargrave are that important to this team.
Mhm.
But it is something worth noting for sure. And Arizona was able to move the ball with pretty much ease for a big chunk of this day. Now, one thing I do want to ask you is the 49ers are getting ready to play Baltimore. We did see a much different game plan when it came to Kyler Murray than what we saw with Jalen Hurts, which I suspected would happen. Do you like what they did as far as rushing Kyler Murray today? Would you employ the game plan they did today with Kyler to keep him in the pocket and try to stop him passing, or would you go more the Eagles route and what they did with Jalen Hurts and kind of wait back with Lamar? What do you think they should do next week?
I think they should do what they did with the Eagles. The thing about Kyler is that Kyler has home run ability, right?
Mhm.
So you're kind of dealing with a different animal, all right? And Kyler is more dynamic. So in certain instances, you want to be able to go after Kyler because you know you can chip him, he'll get on the ground, right? Certain physical, there's a lot of instances where if you get Kyler far enough away from the line of scrimmage, he will just plainly give himself up. Okay, so you have to understand the type of athlete that Kyler is, on top of the fact that we were dealing with a full deck today on the defensive line. So you can't really cut off your nose and spite your face to kind of throw the kitchen sink at the kid and then, kill yourself on the back end, right?
Yeah.
So I understand the nuance and how they address Kyler today, but I would expect them to be a little bit more judicious in their approach with how they approach the Eagles with Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson. If you look at them, they're not necessarily the same athlete, but they do come out of the same school, right? Big athletes. They can be powerful. They can get outside of the pocket. They're a bit of a bigger target than a Kyler Murray is, right? So you can try to figure out how to stop them in the rush lanes. Another thing about Lamar Jackson is he's more like Jalen Hurts, is that he's a little bit more north-south. Kyler's going to bounce out, try to get out all the way in the flats, get you out in the open, try to find some holes out of plastic coverage. And that's the way Kyler kind of gets you. With Lamar is a bit more purposeful with his athleticism. He's going to get outside of the pocket, but still be threatening the line of scrimmage vertically and moving forward, which also lends you to be able to stay inside of your rush lanes, which is what they did against the Philadelphia Eagles.